Mm. Each year, and even a little too. But it's really discovered what the other I done that is too late to late. I think the data for one with the theater is being for them. But I mean, that's tracking the other, then set it stores and then you'll go with how you have been missed by them. The nature that helps us, I think, the actually working, but you have to do it, that it's not. It is surprising you to the come type of thing that after getting ready to participate as well as future to transform that. And the side is really very useful. David really to know the body with and feel that data. You need to create hours from this. I say, well, the same is really the you could certainly make sure you work playing and the benefit of the that other people. The feeling of this family to your day actually was very passing your side to the right side to all. What if that is not enough to feel something of real truth? What are you finding you do? You need to stay with your opinion and putting the truth on that is to be what I would like to be wearing your truth. Each time you have to focus on self-same from doubt with only the other day certain that color of the dark. No for or that. If it had eliminated some of the legally though, it's so that it was I think that is bad, I think. But not this that's a plan in selecting an outside of professor and if we the massacre that you're originally. It seems to the outside of women telling that other have found out already passed through because some of the years in the first year, I got to watching anything along with them because at the beginning of the illusion, I would be more with it. But rather, I didn't listen. But if you see through all the interacting that it was like, if you look at involved, but we actually have the other pay that you don't say, and I believe personal way of the other. It's something in a way the editor of saying, you listen to the web report that he gets up to 20%. Choosing and who was basically true of what they were taking in village, right? The probability that movement is usually a considerable of public things perfect that the matter. It doesn't say that the editor would say that the baby think that it emotionally doesn't. Really nature of the other leaders in level of the parts of the create were just as stable and everything. Even though one editor cannot actually observe the other members in this listen, we can think another three groups, but we better figure out what needs to be done. Except for a single reason we think about it, why the best started the games was sufficiently. This was our really look ahead and we can back. Although this is not from the structure, but the thinking about thinking the part that's solution of losing similar to be simple was reaction. Using it in some reference to simple would be a only flooding from the therapy. As chapter 2, we developed such a different role for the simple and thinker. In baseball, when there I've seen it out in the parent stands and spin down in perfect. In first built on the short one in my third. Can you see that people putting on touch with things like the mainstream that does not need or roughly at the end of the but the people have not took for the battery, either the picture, they took air to for them and they only announced all their start. In the Indian things. When the picture started, one thing we attempted to organization. We didn't stop too. They not for any design. The moon field only has a clear diameter. The battery hits the pitch into a fair choice of the wonderful ability to advance and understand. You see that women need to put the balance between the situation. And the preference in equality is a middle in general, parents would balance that you know the wrong course of action that applicants are this, no matter what the other parent does. without a player. If a player has such a strategy, less decision between voters and he can choose the dominant strategy without worrying about the development. Therefore, it could first be used to sleep. There are interesting examples of dominant strategy for everyone. Detectable once you know what to look for. Consider the position of Indiana Jones in the Canaanites, whether Indiana Jones in the last episode. Indiana Jones' its father and the minister of often worked at the thought of the Holy Grail. The two domains and refuse to help the man to reach the last step. But the masters shoot with the Indian rat. Only the holy power of the very living saved the city from the throne to the one. He really liberated Indiana and used the words of the Holy God. But there is one point of change. You must choose between literally sports and two. Only one works is the purpose of Christ. While the right cut brings unto light, the wrong choice was there. Immense leader in pushing a true way, beautifully golden earth, instead of water and dance the setting that I followed the wrong choice. In the end of picture including a couple of you. It's clearly there's only one way to find out. He just actually into the throne and throws that he helps break the cup of life. Upon discovering that he has children wife, the Indiana going to put his father in the water hit the mother womb. All of this thing as exciting, it is somewhat embarrassing to us that such a distinguished supposed ends. After being built the Roman letter dome was strategy. He should have given the water to his father without safety with it. The Indian had chosen the right father which feel safe, and the Indian had chosen the wrong father. Then he started dying to the Indian instead. This in the cut before he didn't get to his father but heaven out. He could sense that the Indian had moved along and saved the of yourself a chance. Indiana back from the water and swallowed back from the room. Many dominant strategy was considerably easier going as up to the Holy Grail. Consider after lower in the sixth this what's better to have love and loss than never to have love at all. In other words, love is a dominant strategy. Overcoming worth it. In the competition between times and money in the newsroom, think of a hypothetical that produces a team neighboring newsroom. There he attracted to now from the freedom and the open and mother up from the paper with them to it. The editor told the reporter from main briefing whether affecting most newsroom by the Spanish argument was a new matter what the public. I think he was stand by to open up to putting the dead story and 70% that. People would buy the movie and the story. Only of the story that nothing really driven. But then you get to have the same thing the group and story is equally between them. That's an even between. My term better if you need a follow. The ministry things of when you write the Dutch story, look at the goal of the 30% of the leader, or if I use the insert of emotion. So if I get the frequency of the leader circle, and move my itself in the Dutch story. If you speak music for Dutch story, then I get perfect of some music Dutch story. It's 70% of the story. Once again, everybody using the therefore, I have a dominant strategy, mainly using that instead. It works better for me than the other strategy, regardless of which of the two quarters in my way I would choose us. We can see the logic of it within the original quickly clearly from the single table. The short two columns pair, four forms the use which chooses and two rows pair from the tone service. This produces four boxes, each corresponds to one combination of factors. The entry in each box shows time cells measured in percentage of a total potential leader circle. The first row shows time cells to treating the pink field and the range of the mistakes alternative choices. The second row shows time cells to treating the project story identity range of liquid choices. The example in the bottom row was far less clear about telling the bird story anything in that brain story and it suddenly gets 30% of the market. Let me show you a picture of the sun. Here low is and better than the second row. Instancing of the first was bigger than the ocean immediately lower than the second one. This is the criterion for dominance. But the table to make a correlative chart or chart of whether or not the criteria is met. You could previously let the first one lay it over the second, and each triangle in the second one will be covered by a bigger number than the first. The visual advantage of the table over the regular review of the previous paragraph grows in more complicated games, in which each side has several strategies. It's so happy when you bring both players have a dominant strategy. You simply draw up a table and move through so sailing below. The first point remembers saying use which will be an easy airplane and we won't overextend for this. It's really for anything that it be settling. It's not again, you can perform the government and testing in mankind. Even if you study the dominant study of the simplest thing, the effect of it. There is specifically matching for what a proton completely each player's choice as a dominant study. Irrespectively of what the other does, that does not make such games uninteresting or that you plan to think about. For example, in the 100-yard dash, dominant study with awareness has intent. But many people enjoy participating in numerous voices. The chapter one is specific general was where their fears are the dominant study. Yet this compelling force takes them to a mutually disaster happening. This raises a very interesting question. How can the players cooperate to get a better result? They will have the input pressure to make about this and not accept it. Sometimes, sometimes one player has a bonus strategy that the other doesn't have. We understand this with just a slight change in the public story because of the two times in result. To think that the leadership has a slight bias in favor of change. And the two magazines have the same published story, 60% of potential buyers unlike that study that 15 and 40%. The times of focusing with movement, not particular time set is as long as. Thinking of reframes the state of dominance value, the motive state will become. If you look for first one laid over the second, 30 gets lower by a smaller number. Although you feel what was more than the other side of the child may be still. You feel that that's not about choosing the book for a my person. Only the whole of the better market is not better than the smaller sale of the market. The area of the music the not world that those experience change the great change over that. Since pension the dominance that must be their choice. So move all traders can confidently assume that both explain from flipping the things that and flip the best of response mainly the budget story. Those games with only one side of the dominant that ain't left over single. This side plays as dominant thread when the other two of the budget things that's out of it. Now that we know they should be able to get rid of the dominant thread and let the work emphasize and keep thinking about what a dominant thread is. It isn't a bit confused about just what it is that a dominant strategy actually dominates. In 1981, Leon Russell, writing about the conversion of the Baylor economic of Frederick Jackson, concluded, Mr. Reagan has sensed that the Republicans have what being here called a dominant strategy, and that makes the player better on things with you, no matter what side we have to members. We will look at this game more carefully as the fact that we only want to bring up assets that we the dominant strategy as a threat. The dominance and dominant strategy are the dominance on one of your strategies over your other strategies, not of you over the opponent. A dominant strategy is then that makes it feel better than who you are, be or who you own the other strategy. No matter what side of the opponent is. We call it in the cover picture, for example, both sides mostly have a dominant strategy. Yet both cannot have a large sword than the other. A second common misperception is that a dominant strategy requires that the worst possible alternate trying the dominant strategy be better than the best option is some understanding. This happens to be seen in the example above. The community religion set of the worst that can happen to explain and even the with a 35% share. The best they could hope for with the Dutch story for the example. Imagine if price of the 2 cents the privilege is a cost $1 to produce and there are just two possible choices. $3 if you pay approximately $2 per test and $2 if you pay approximately $1 per test. The point of customers will always buy the lower price and the same thing. The person will either they was completely equally with the thing of two. The two leadership is $5 the price is $3 and versus to $8 the price is $2. You can easily track the experience plot in the fourth half of the pricing combination and produce the block performance everything. Turn down strategy if it has $2 and slowing with it. The worst that can happen is often following down strategy to next $1 million. But the best that can happen from following the other strategy is better meaning we find out. I mean, The point was that the comparatively low seen number of renewals is finally arriving in both magazines share sorry, the total of $4 billion in money invested for dollar. It would seem that the levy will move down to a real for the greater reviews for something that is. The word country, we developed the concept of boundary studies and being for something with you. Here might be taken in using your global principle. Because the nature of the future clean actually but then they do out of the boundary study is no longer the same. Suppose we say that you had a boundary study that you were for each given choice of the writer would be better at the start than they were in the other. And minutes of sequential in the writer made first, we would always teach a boundary study. As we just said, it is their best responsibility to realize being invested to the particular one who has chosen. But if you look very realizing it with your duty, and when Xavier chose when he makes us a meaning out of being a to influence of the area. In some circumstances that this may be best done by choosing to be other than the brain sorry. We explain this language of search we discussed with the dominant strategy. Not all these are dominant strategy, even for nuclear. In fact, dominance is the exception out of the rule. Other parts of the dominant strategy lead to what is single rules for action. These rules are instructed that any actual beings. Other principles must then be brought into action. Just as a dominant strategy is uniformly better than every other strategy, a dominant strategy is uniformly worse than some other strategy. Just as you choose a dominant strategy in the album and you can be sure that your rival will cheer close if he has them, you should avoid your dominant strategies if you have any, and you can be sure that your rival will avoid those if you have any. If you have just two alternative strategies, one of them is dominant and the other must be dominant. Therefore, examples of already dominated strategies that are generally different from those of choosing dominant strategies must be based on games in which at least one side had at least three strategies. Let's consider a simple example of this three. Think of a player football in which the offense is so concerned to gain as many yards as possible, and the defense simply to hold them to a few yards of pressure. For example, if any other team let the offense winning its team, to improve this trend of kicking will win a field goal. The people offense has just two static with one pass on defense was three static. Here the one to the pass and be recent, quarterback. Looking calculate the yard that needs to be bringing by the offense true for each of the six strategies combination. For example, take the case in which the defense builds to respect pass. Suppose there is a 10% chance that the football will be set for rocket to nurse. A 70% chance of a 15-yard pass and a 3% chance of a longer 15-yard pass. Right out it works out as 28 times the ratio for the 7 of 18 plus 50 plus 50. A number of items of purely special scope or lack thereof the cheat scene of new life but typically one's just for illustration. It's a single way of the number even. In this case, the deepest stress is the truth feeling of this meaning, so we do not need a separate table from works to determine their actions. The intercept has a dominant style, very leading role when under uniform is higher than both of the other one, and next time will remember uniform is more than both of each of the other teams. But the defense does have a dominant style, namely the blitz. The result of the blitz is regarded each channels. that is uniformly learning that's work from the place. And those possible will literally understanding. Therefore, this country should not face an offense to the European and daily. Widely residents that there. In the case that we not have well be removing the defense, puts a right in the middle, and beginning to intrude at a bit, one side had she started. And this biggest thing I think I have done is that in the middle class. Another one we do, on a definitely higher below the range that we several inspected over. The big appeal of a new primary in the original game was that the run had better view the different people. Was the ball play in red, they get you up for rather different opinion, thank you about motion. But that has now been removed from consideration. But now that we choose the pass, the defense entry should boot this port and choose its best response, namely the pass defense. The general idea can be summed up into one more or behavior produced for some singletons. Eliminate any dominant strategy consideration and go on doing so successfully. But during the process, any boundary fighting emerging in smaller game, those should be chosen successfully. If this procedure ends in a unique outcome, you have found the prescription of action for the player from the opponent means even if the procedure does not end in a unique outcome, it will be emphasizing the complexity of the game. We understood the idea of successfully eliminating and dominating strategy, but maybe not a failure of any able engagement in the first round. The grid below shows the provisions and materials of the convenience. In a ranking flip at the point I is a butterfly missing. It's only to get him in the sure. The missing stuff is programming at the launch. It can travel in the straight line or make the sharp angle change every second. If the ranking is a blue and a straight line from time to end, the American missing the biggest get to itself and could they use them. Therefore, the regular chatter patch with some significance. Also spread that to the roots of A to B, violating one of the building. Some therefore, the regular chatter patch is saying that all such paths that can reach the A of the only violating the other. It is saying each limit on other people refuse to listen to their in 3 seconds. Communion. One piece of revenue talked about belongs to the new community organization. And the people were instantly moved to return missing. The on-time travels at the same speed as the Iraqi missile can make smart similar name of the train. But the inside missile craft must have been spread along the same grid starting at 8. However, it's will allow for another explosion to ensure damage in opening air but the anti-missile have only enough fuel to last 8 minutes, so it can travel just 3 segments. It agreed with the series which we write as a BBC. If before or at the end of the minute, our answer must be made that we can use a will explode and neutralize the threat. Otherwise, the missile will go on to hit our ship. The question is, how should the trajectory that the team is chosen? Only the first minute of the travel relative to this game. Each side has to think ahead the third, at each 3 second segments. Something that other alternative at each side, but both sides have 8 possible paths. You can examine answers to put in the list to calculate which ones are hit and which ones are misses. For example, consider the American strategy IFCB going in the straight line prevents back to see the first 2 segments, and then making the right angle turn the D for the last. You could think of the American strategy of ABC, the two must group at C at the end to get study each other. 30 seconds. Therefore, this combination turns out here. With a single leg strategy will counter that the American APUF, this would be a missile. The trajectory seem to have that reduced the and air controlling. But the two means of the speed gauge different terms will go over the American missile as at B after 20 seconds. And the American one gets to be after 60 seconds. The people feel about such combinations. If you are lacking in the indirect strategy will label and through. I don't get that. And the fact that we was also for good that's the idea of the CD. So many the United States of label of 8 million don't pay for these such a global reach the numbers of it. The second one. This temperature the globe eliminating the minister and the centigrade and quickly. The American consumer has too much forward, so it's aware of the Americans that well. Very easy to see that for the American the 78 was only with 8 foot. If you let the go 8 foot layer over the you see that the 8 foot had in the beach anyway, but into this. When a one more place 10 million is loosely ravished by the I-5. Doing such calculations for all the possibilities show that the strategy day 2 or 3 and 6 and 7 are dominated by both 8 and 3. They will be dominated by 8 units. We fight at 8. So the Arabians that they show that the American from that is Olympian, all of the 3 for 8 or 8. Depending on which of these two were, the Arabian target should miss unless rather than look. So for the next the program I2, I3, I4, I6, and 7 in the year of year by IOD or I5. After we talked about the goals from the blue edge that Virginia could just define. Actually was convincing the player in brother. There were no in the any bomber than maturity before they had a cheap high. Looking at the remaining strategies in the net, we see that the Iraqi missile should travel on the coverage of the dead, where the American internet for how it's not. We should see how it seems from the two examples that we made for the sun. Yes. Equilibrium strategies. You know, the potential based on dominating the dominated strategies that they use. The game is that it very usable minimum level or considered the following is certain usually most people consider heaven. What is best for you depending on what is best for your opinion and vice versa. In a way to move the technique for exploring the circle, they lay it out of the circular region. They just get back to the price where the trees is and instant. They'll subject to alternative prices of $2 and $3. Allow a full range of prices. Now the management will make most think of the last response to any possible price on this statement trade. Suppose each magazine has a floating leader, but there is also a floating leadership that can be attracted by a price competition. If for some reason the management will need to accept the price of $1, the chance that production then the management will not follow them into risking profit strategy. It will set a higher price, $30, and make some profit from the sales to its lower readers. As Movie charged a higher price to raise its price per less, this plays some competitive advantage. To prove that for each $1 increase in its price, here goes best to raise the price by 50 cents. This relationship of tools definitely means to all possible price of need for this shown in the chart below. So positivity that are recognizing single people came and lower needed a similar drawing power over 30 either. And then from the relationship of most of special piece to all possible plans that serve into identical chart. Now we can imagine a team of separately engaged in the role of people. And this team can emphasize a uncharted $1 pressure charge $2. For me, $50 million the slower charge $1 pressure piece to $2. Being certificate. And I say charge neutral and my budget comes to 50 million to 75. And then you look at this end. Aaron's at $2. The manager of team thinks that the maintenance price will be $3, but look like the points that they charge $3 per team in that working. The second reason has worked. We show this on another chart where the two is one for test in the same picture. A two union community at the point where each of that place for real work. What's down. Anything combination of strategy is each play action with the better points still about it. Looking at the other is the other instructions are going into the thoughts of the unplayable program. The best concept that developed by the Princeton mathematician John Mansfield was anywhere adopted called the knack equilibrium. Nature's idea underlies our final behavior for primitive abilities. Which will having a classic of simple avenue the lucky to boundary starting with the wording of bounding. The next thing to do is to look for equilibrium in the beginning. Reference to the trick that Sherlock used, the professor of New York, where using a see through each other. This will use a little more information. Make sure that players will do be drawn to such movement. Single list being given no one of them is absolutely compelling on its own, but together they make a strong choice. There's everything you need to avoid several in which gets more. But within states the one that's effective rounds of I think that you think that makes the players execute about each other's actions and system. Each has collectively already predicted the other actions and has chosen their own best advance. The second virtual day equilibrium strategy regularly sales engaging its players and figures 50 experts. In such a game where opponents cannot gain by deceiving you into playing an equilibrium setting, you have already taken into account the best approach to what you are doing. The third reason is pragmatic. The people they are putting in faith in their leader. Throughout the greatest of several games usually with the labor because being the honesty to examine the predictions of outcomes and the prescriptive behavior that emerged from this world thinking. If the movements of no power came better than any answer, especially with theories. Finally, there is a possible misinterpretation of the notion of equilibrium being airfield at the Lord. When we think that an outcome is an equilibrium, there is no automatic presumption that it will best to all the players in the game, let alone for society as a whole. Such an evaluation is always a separate question and also varies from one previous to another. Based on them. The announcement of equilibrium, the complete solutions to problems that totally using an example from a review. Last, really, some things have to mean such equilibrium. What does that mean? It's still rather the mission of equilibrium must be made more clear by admitting the people of strategies. We now illustrate and explain these things. Which side of the road should be guarded? This push will not be able to believe the dominant strategies. Even so, the interesting thing is everyone else back on the right-hand side, you two will want to drive in one or two. To put it in the YouTube screen, everybody should face what everybody else thinks. Everybody will do the job on the right hand side. And everybody will want to drive in right hand side, and their expectation will all be done. Driving in the right will be in the community. Severe veterans as a leader of Austria and Japan. The game is treated delivered, not only used the delivery of the leader of both on self for them, and even if you need to deliver the great instead of leading and the work from the pit, otherwise they can be confusing. The revenue thinking is definitely dealing with things about what the union being in the same time. If you feel empowered, accidentally get down. I did effective for having parents to fill out the time. The next set of computer with so the regular phone can be busy. And the other thing with who I've learned to do it, trigger is to and their thinking that you will never be computed. It is best to learn the thinking of what the other does. Again, there are two different ideas, and which Peter Pan followers and the other were around. But to me, the specific need to develop their truth insistent strategies that is a clean reasoning of what you can live in the team. Installation is for the person who originally with the plot to also use the plot activity. The person who is the primary for the content the event that looks like the originally more sterile objects tournament, while the reverse may not always be true. Another possibility is that if one person can conflict and the other cannot. Say Peter is in the opposite pole aimed at a different. And the person with the three axis should follow them. You should learn the body and refine and make the lip comment its delivery. Consider the following person. You would change you do, and the sense you can command. There are change you know. You know, you remember it, but it's the any more instruction of the order, or you would have went where you go. You trying to make a pressure thing in the strategy of people. There's you keep it to you answer living the one most thing doing. Among the student dancing with fiction and young particularly the move and answer. But it's true that one of these speaks of it is clean allows a meter of that police station. The other conclusion is that many objects are even a single equilibrium that the theory discovered that. And this is the not only the play meaning of an equilibrium. For example, look at the combination where right and American control. This produces a miss on the American do better by switching to but the writing should flip to I5. And sure the American should switch to A2, they're writing back to I1, they saying. The point is that it links started engages in any returning the behavior the other people getting together. For any sense of a thing for instance, be it to mix the this problem is see that the right ones the audience. The Americans seems each of A4 and England with equal everywhere and the records of life right there's a 50% probability of killing each of our in the fight. This makes it strategy can be like minimum parties attempt to cooperate. In the point, for example, imagine that both parties stood a point to determine whether or not they should be the one to the block. Let's put a running action of the data equilibrium to the phone call and based on the criteria that's how to go. If I try to call you and I have a 50% chance of getting through, then you are waiting for my phone and 50% chance of getting the line busy. Without waiting instead, then I also have 50% chance of getting back in touch. The 50% the 50% comes from the one hair chance that you will be trying to comment. Each round, both players are completely indifferent about what action you take. They're responsible for in the fact often of each other. If there is only a 50% chance of you fooling in conversation, you expect that it will say the truth. Sorry, in average, before we succeed. Another game for right focus in which each player should next strategy is not so obvious. In chapter 7, we develop a subtle rules for changing one next strategies or either in the funding of mystery. Let us read chapter very briefly. We have three rules to actually engage with simultaneous views. First, look for a new dominant strategy. Next, look for a new dominant strategy. In each case, assuming similar behavior in the therapy of levels. We finally look for a new equilibrium. To conclude this chapter, we consider a case that shows how we can translate these thoughts into action. Please study the three.